Hello, everybody, and welcome into the Two for Talking podcast. I'm your host, Corey Tusick. We've got Joe Bartnick, comedian extraordinaire, alongside. You can check him out at the Pittsburgh Improv on July 10th. And also, if you're up in Boston, you can check him out at the Boston Comedy Studio on August 23rd. And then also, we've got Josh Yohe with The Athletic. You can read all his work there, but you can also read his piece about Kyle Dubas's free agency plans. And guys, that's kind of where I want to start with this. Josh, it seemed, all of a sudden you tweet out, Kyle Dubas talked to me and told me his free agency plans. And I think the Athletics website traffic had to get pretty heavy real quick.
Yes and no. The only problem with that was it was Friday at 5:00, which is the ultimate Friday news dump time. But yes, it still garnered some interest. And really what it comes down to, and good evening, gentlemen, Joe's in Philadelphia and enemy territory. Always good to know.
It was, and I had some fun conversations, but go ahead, Josh, please.
Basically, here's what Kyle told me. And we know that especially 2 years ago, July 1st was not very kind to him. He certainly made some mistakes in the unrestricted free agency period. And he essentially said he's not going to do anything major on July 1st. I know that pisses a lot of people off, like, oh, it's kind of a buzzkill. But then he proceeded to say that he's probably going to be very active in the trade market. And this isn't like a new thing. He's mentioned this before, but he got a little more specific. He specifically said, there are teams out there that have been basically building for a while and they're looking to take a jump. And we think we can make trades with those teams because they want to get older and more experience. And we want to take advantage of their salary cap situations and get some younger players on our team. So, you can look through the standings and figure out what teams he's talking about if you really want to. The teams that jumped into my mind are teams like Buffalo and Detroit, teams that, do have talent who haven't been able to make that jump into the playoffs. So I thought that was awfully interesting that he came right out and said that he expects to be very active in the trade market. And also, that doesn't necessarily mean he's just going to trade a veteran for a young guy. They have 31 draft picks in the next 3 years. They're not going to use all those draft picks. They can use those draft picks to as trade ammunition as well. And I think we'll see that. So I don't know. I found it pretty interesting that he came right out and said that, and I'll take him at his word. I think it's going to be a very interesting next 3 or 4 weeks for him.
Well, Josh, that scares me because to me it sounds like he's greasing the wheels to send Brian Rust out of town.
That's exactly what I thought.
Especially to Detroit.
Well, and another team in that, I know for a fact Columbus is in love with him. It, again, makes sense. Talented young team. Why wouldn't they want Brian Rust? I've talked with Kyle about that, and I'm not saying he'll never trade Brian Rust. Of course it's possible, and his no-trade clause expires in 23 days. But I don't think he's going to trade him. I actually don't. I think he thinks the world of Rusty, and he knows how happy Brian Rust makes Sidney Crosby, and he knows that Rust is great with young players. So I don't think it's going to be him. But it was noteworthy that he said that, and that tells me he is going to be aggressive. The name Marco Rossi is out there, an undersized but really talented guy who the Minnesota Wild apparently don't want to pay. I just don't think he's a Billy Aaron kind of guy.
Yeah, that's what we want, Josh. We want a guy that doesn't fit with like what Billy Guerin wants to do. I want an undersized, less skilled Mitch Marner. Yeah, how can Dubas make my summer any worse?
I don't know. I'm throwing that name out there. I don't know.
Columbus. So now I have Sully in New York. I got Tocchet in Philly. I got Rust in Columbus, and I have a developmental and I have a developmental coach as my head coach. Thanks, Dubas. I'm having a great 2025.
Joe, I mean, you are the person I think of when most of this news breaks. Because I try to think of what you're gonna say, and I keep thinking, I wish StreamYard had a dump button because I'd feel a lot more comfortable as this news starts to get worse. Because Joe's gonna just blow someday. He's gonna lose it.
Rusty would be the final straw.
I don't actually think that's going to happen. I don't. I'd be surprised if Brian Rust is traded this summer. But I don't know, and it might be something where. When Kyle talks about teams wanting older guys, it might be, hey, we'll give you a second-round pick and we'll give you Kevin Hayes. You got to take his money, and we'll give you a second and a third round pick, but we want that guy, or something along those lines. I think there's a lot of different scenarios that could unfold here. But I think Joe, the Penguins fan, should be encouraged that Dubas isn't going to spend a whole lot of money on July 1st. He's not going to go after. He's not going to go after some big name. He's not going to go after Mitch Marner. He's not going to spend huge money because I think he knows that. And he even said to me, he said, there's not a lot of value on July 1st. You're going to overpay to get anybody, and that's true.
Well, Josh, a couple points. One is I wouldn't be so scared, but every day I see on the internet, and it's never from you, it's never from Elliot, or it's never from a guy who's been a friend of mine and Puckoff host, a guest many times, the great Kevin Allen, USA Today Hall of Famer. So it's always some aggregate that's like Detroit Red Wings interested in Brian Rust. That's because I guess they just put together, he's from Michigan. That's where he wants to go. So that's why my ire is always up, or I'm always scared when it comes to Michigan. But, Kyle shouldn't spend any money on July 1st because there's nothing out there other than Mr. Bennett. And Bennett's not going to come to Pittsburgh. If he goes anywhere, he's not coming to Pittsburgh. He wants to play for a winner. He doesn't want to play for a team on a 5-year plan.
And we'll talk about the final later, of course, but I don't think Florida is going to let him get away. I'd be surprised. I think they'll spend whatever it takes to keep that guy.
And the money they handed, the money at the Avalanche, did they actually watch Brock Nelson when they had him? $7 million for Brock. I please, everyone's saying Gino makes too much money. Look at Brock Nelson this year. Tell me who was more effective.
Well, it's true. So I mean, it's a fair point. I don't know. I think it's a very interesting few weeks here for the Penguins. They still don't know if they're going to get the Rangers pick or not. We'll find out in the next couple of weeks. But they do have an enormous amount of draft picks. They have over $20 million in cap space, so they can certainly spend some on July 1st. But to hear Kyle say it, don't be shocked if they're clearly trying to land a big name, and I don't know who it is, but they're trying to pry a young player away from somewhere, someone who makes a good amount of money. He actually said to me, he said, I'd love to trade for somebody, then we'll pay them. Like, we'll, give an extension, whatever. That's kind of where they want to spend their money. And he just made it so clear to me when I brought up July 1st. It's not that he's against signing people on July 1st. He just doesn't want more players in their 30s on this roster. That's basically what he said.
Yeah.
Josh,
yeah.
I'm not going to say I watch a ton of Wild games, but I watch a few. I watch more than most people, probably, Penguin fans. Marco Rossi has never jumped off the screen to me. Like, that's the guy we're shooting for.
I don't know if it is, Joe. I mean, it might not be.
Yeah.
I mean, that's been rumored, right?
The what? But I mean, you are the guy. I mean,
what about Nice?
You're starting the rumor, but I mean, there's only a couple of people that really have the inside information. So,
and I have not heard. There's not been one person in the organization that has told me Marco Rossi. Okay. I know there are other people have linked the Penguins that maybe, I don't know. I mean, he is a young, talented guy, which is, what they're talking about, young, talented guys, right? He is undersized, no question, and he would fit right in that regard. But Dubas has, also made it clear to me that he wants this team to get bigger and tougher.
Right. That's why.
That's a concern of his.
Yeah, I mean, that's why undersized. The first thing I hear is even wherever you bury undersized in the paragraph, I'm gonna see it. Wherever undersized is, it's gonna be like undersized. The one name that I've seen linked to the Penguins, which it maybe clogs up the blue line, but it also makes me think, well, maybe he's gonna move somebody. Which, please, dear God, move somebody. Is Haig in Vegas? I think he'd be perfect for us. I don't know if you've heard that, Josh.
Yeah, I mean, I know that name is out there, and they could certainly use somebody like him. And I think the majority of moves that we see this offseason, whether it be in free agency or on the trade market, I really think it's very clear that Dubas is going to be focused on the blue line. He knows how bad his blue line is. And even though they have a lot of prospects that they really like, Brunick and Pianiemi, Harding, Pickering, like these guys are all young. Most of them won't be on the team next year. So in the short term, he clearly wants to revamp his blue line. Will Erik Karlsson be traded? That's a question that I get constantly on my Q&As. I think if there's a team willing to take him, they'll talk. I think his act is, or pretty thin pretty quickly in Pittsburgh. I don't think I'm breaking news by saying that. But the problem is, as bad as Carlson has been in Pittsburgh, he still eats up 25 minutes a night. Like, who are you going to get to play those minutes if you trade him? So they clearly have to bring in some NHL people. And Haig's an interesting guy and somebody that they could use, I think.
Now, do you have any like I know I'm trying to ask a question that you don't have an answer to, but it's like, if you could read Kyle Dubas's mind and what type of player he wants when he's trying to pry someone away. Because I think immediately, Joe, you mentioned the Wild. I think, how could we get somebody like a Kirill Kaprizov? How could we get I don't know, Matthew Nyes. You mentioned that, Joe, before too, float an offer sheet. Like, is there people like that? Like, who's a Kyle Dubas player, like a Kyle Dubas type?
I can answer that question just on we're never going to get Kaprizov, because literally Billy Guerin said he'll give him the state of Minnesota.
Well, he probably should.
Well, he's one of the 10 best players in the league, so that's
right. It maybe even 5 or 6.
Yeah.
But say like a Matthew Nyes. Like, is he?
Well, Nyes, it's real easy. All they have to do is offer sheet him to some ridiculous number that Toronto can't match.
Well, they do, but if you do that, you also lose a first-round pick and a second-round pick. It's a pretty significant compensation package that you're losing too.
Honestly, though, Josh, I think the chances of us getting a first-round pick and a second-round pick that's going to be as good as Matthew Nyes I think Nyes is better than the pick they're going to get.
Probably. I don't necessarily disagree with you, but I asked Kyle about the RFA situation on Friday, and he certainly downplayed the idea of signing one of them. He mentioned last season with St. Louis and Edmonton, and said it was kind of a perfect storm with the cap not going up, and he all but said, "I'm not going to do it." So I thought of you immediately, Joe. I'm thinking, Joe's going to be so pissed off. He wants Matthew Nyes so badly.
As I was reading that article, I was like, boy.
I know. But I think it further illustrates, and I'm not defending Dubas here. He certainly made his mistakes when he took over 2 years ago. It just illustrates what a difficult spot the Penguins are in right now. Like, there's not an easy, quick fix here. Like, there's really not. You're not going to become a Stanley Cup team by spending stupid money on July 1st. It's great that they have all these draft picks, but these kids are going to take some time to develop. That's just the way it is. And the older players they have on the roster aren't getting better, and most of them aren't really tradable. So it's just a tough spot the Penguins are in, and I think everybody knows it. But we all like our off-season drama and transactions, and if he can pull off a trade or two to maybe expedite this process of reloading or rebuilding or whatever you want to call it, I think everybody would be for that. I don't know who specifically he has in mind, but he's clearly got something in mind, and I would expect potentially a significant trade before July 1st. It would not surprise me at all.
What are the chances we could possibly get Keandre Miller? I think I bring him up every week.
He's out there. His name, I talked with people at the Combine in Buffalo on Friday. It certainly sounds like he will not be playing for the Rangers next season, which I still think is a mistake on the Rangers' part, by the way. I guess he didn't have a good year last year, but that guy's got so much talent. I would think any team would want to get its hands on him, and he'd be perfect for the Penguins. They need somebody who's talented, a big guy like that, who they could work with. I think it makes a lot of sense.
He's literally going to be Seth Jones, if not better than Seth Jones. Maybe not a better player, but a longer lasting with the team, because Seth Jones he kind of burned 3 or 4 of his good years in Chicago.
Right. No, he may. He every time I watch Miller play, he plays really well against the Penguins always. So he almost won game 7 in overtime on the breakaway, drew the penalty that led to the game-winning goal. He is just unbelievably talented. I always find that he just stands out when I watch them play. If he's available, that's the kind of guy you want. I don't know that the Rangers necessarily want to be trading him inside the division. Who knows? But yeah, that's a guy who's talented, young, coming off a bad year or whatever. Maybe he needs a change of scenery, but someone like that makes sense. And I know for a fact, Joe, Kyle in particular is very concerned about the left side of his blue line, as he should be, because the best player on the left side of the blue line last year was probably Ryan Shea. Like, that's where we are right now. That's not, I don't think Matt Grzelcyk's coming back. You traded Marcus Pettersson. It's just a bad situation on the left side. And Pickering, I'm sure, will probably be on the team to start next season. But there's no given that Pickering's going to be a good NHL player. He may. We'll see. But still a ways to go with him.
Mark Cheney, thanks for typing in. Thanks for listening. Thanks for joining the show. If you listen, I love the passing the kid Jason Robertson, and he has sweet hands. But I'll tell you, another guy, undersized. If you're looking for someone maybe Dallas would give up, there's no way they're giving up to Sheriff Wyatt Johnson. But I would take a look at Marchment. I think he's somebody, he's got some guts. He could probably play second line on the Penguins, and he's probably a guy that Dallas would get rid of for a second or third round pick.
I don't know what their salary cap situation is off the top of my head. That always rules everything. But, another problem for the Penguins is that, you want to take advantage of teams with cap troubles. I understand that, but the cap's going way up this summer. So that's going to help all those teams. There's not going to be that many teams that are in cap hell. Last year he really did a nice job taking advantage of Nashville on a couple of deals, just because they were in cap hell. So he was able to pry a couple of players away basically for nothing. I don't know if that's going to be the case this season, just because of the cap going considerably up, even more than people expected.
Well, it just made me think of the Stars. I was trying to think of someone. I just like the way Marchment plays. I think he has some toughness. He can get under forecheck. He's exactly the kind of guy we need. Because I would love to have Wyatt Johnson. They're not going to give us Wyatt Johnson or Rupe Hintz. So I'm just looking at guys. I'll tell you what, though. I'll take any of their bottom pair defensemen they have can play for us any day. Those big dudes. I will tell you that.
Yeah, go ahead, Corey.
No, I was gonna say, do you think Dubas is going to be hesitant to try and pull a big trade because of the last one where we're like, Erik Karlsson might expedite the process, and it's done the complete opposite of expedite the process. A GM, I guess by nature isn't going to be hesitant and gun shy, but we're used to GM JR, who was the opposite of gun shy. He just walked in and lit up everything. So I don't know. I don't know Dubas's style. I don't know his personality, and I don't know how burned he feels by that Erik Karlsson deal.
I don't think he'll be gun shy at all. In fact, I think he has a lot of Jim Rutherford in him. I think he likes to wheel and deal. I think he is a bit of a home run hitter, a big swinger. Jim Rutherford's in the Hall of Fame, and rightfully so, but Jim made a lot of shitty trades in his life too. That's just how Jim was. He was a home run hitter, strike out a lot. That's just the way it is. No, I get the sense that Kyle is itching to do something. I don't think he wants to have a stagnant summer where you're basically bringing the same team back and just bringing in a bunch of draft picks this summer for prospect camp and then, telling them you'll see them in a year. I don't think he wants that. I believe him when he says he feels some urgency to try to get some real talent in here that's ready to play right now. So what does he do? Well, he has a wealth of draft picks now, and those are a real currency. There are teams that really want those. So you can use some of those draft picks to trade for people, yes, but you have to be careful. You can get yourself in trouble by trading first, second, third round picks. Ideally, you still want to use those picks and develop a really great system in the next couple of years and have something for the future. So it's a fine line that he's in, but I think Dubas feels pressure. Fact is, he's been here 2 years. They haven't made the playoffs. Sid's not happy about it. They had, a lot of empty seats this season, too. That's something from a business standpoint you have to consider. This is a spoiled fan base, a fan base that expects to be entertained and to win. A lot of empty seats this past season. He's aware of that. So, like I always say about Dubas, he makes a lot of money. He's wealthy for life. He's well compensated. Good for him. But I wouldn't necessarily want his job right now. There's not an easy, quick fix to the plight the Penguins are in right now.
Well, I was talking to Staggy, and best wishes to Paul Steigerwald. He fell off his bike this week.
He told you about that too. I know.
Well, yeah. Well, and I said, I said, what happened, Staggy, when you heard who the coach was? Did you fall off your bike?
Staggy's going to live forever. He's fine.
Yeah, no, he's a little dinged up, but Staggy's right back. He's a wily veteran. He's not going to miss. He's going to miss. But I was just telling Stags, and I actually had to go to my show at Zany's. It's like the only thing I like more than doing stand-up comedy is talking hockey with Stag. But I was like, that's the thing. I just want to be relevant. I don't know if I don't have a loser mentality, but I've seen 5 cups. Like, if I don't see another one, okay. I don't want to wait for this Mount Olympus. Like, we're going to suck for 10 years because we're going to build up to something. I'd rather just make the playoffs. And if we lose in the first round, at least you saw the playoffs this year. There's nothing like playoff hockey. Not even Rod Brindamore can make it that unexciting.
Yeah. Well, and you guys remember we went on like a 2-year drought in the late 90s where we didn't get out of the first round. And then we beat New Jersey in 99. And it was like, I felt like we advanced to the Stanley Cup final. Like, it was like, oh my God, it's the second round of the playoffs and we're still playing, like it's fun.
Well, it's like I've said forever, making the playoffs is a big deal when you don't. And everyone got so used to making it was like our birthright. Oh, we always make that. We make fun. Oh, we're in the playoffs. Oh, we're going to play in the first round. It's like, yeah, I remember when we never made the playoffs. So I never took it for granted. And and they're going to have a parade when we make it again in 2039.
No, it's a philosophical thing, I guess. And I remember after Mario retired the first time, those Yager years when late 90s, that you knew they weren't going to win a cup. They weren't a cup team, and you knew it. But there was something to be said for still making the playoffs, and I agree with that. You could look at it so many different ways, and I think for a lot of Penguins fans who don't agree with that, I actually think it's a Pittsburgh thing, and the Steelers have really added to it. Just how many years now have the Steelers made the playoffs, but you knew damn well they weren't going anywhere in the playoffs, and I think maybe people got sick of that. I don't know. I think sometimes that bleeds into the Penguins' opinion. Sometimes there is something to be said for making the playoffs. I just sometimes I get confused as to what the plan is, because Kyle talks about being urgent, right? I want to urgently get back to making us a Stanley Cup contender, which is great. That's great. But, has there really been anything that urgent with the moves that he's made the last couple of years? Or the last year, really? Not really. It's just been acquiring assets. So, I don't know. I think we'll learn a lot this summer about what the short-term future is for this team. But I understand the fan base getting a little frustrated. These are not fun times for the Penguins.
Well, the only urgent thing he did was make sure he moved Lars Eller before he could, get into a bidding war for him. that was the only quick move he made. It
was a little odd, yes.
Yeah, and Lars was a good soldier, and I'm happy it worked. He did right by him, because I don't want to hold back Lars. But he's exactly what the Penguins needed, was a good second, third line center.
I know.
For the rest of the year, like the one guy not to get rid of was basically him. Early.
If their performance in the first 2 months of the season weren't a sign, that was the sign. Oh, this isn't going anywhere. Because why would we trade a guy that we could really use? Like
for a 5th round pick or whatever. Yeah, I mean, that was a little bit of an odd move for sure. So yeah, I don't know. And yet I think Dubas has done a lot of good things in terms of acquiring all the draft picks and prospects that he has in the last 12 months. He has, and they needed that. There's something to be said for that, no question. But now I feel like we've kind of come to a next step where it's not just about quantity and adding lots of picks. That it's time to get some building blocks here and to add some quality. And I keep, when I talk about this, guys, I keep getting Sid in the back of my mind. And he's going to be 38 in August. And from his standpoint, I know a lot of people say, screw the old guys. It's about the young guys now. Well, that's still Sidney Crosby you're talking about, okay? And I would hope anybody who's a Pittsburgh Penguins fan doesn't want him to have played in his last playoff game before he hangs up the skates. And so getting back to the playoffs just for him, I think is a big deal. But honestly, guys, on the surface, I don't see them as a playoff team next season. There's a hell of a lot of work to do, in my opinion, for that to happen. It's not that it can't happen. But I don't like their chances at the moment. And if they're not going to be real active in free agency, boy, he better hit a trade or two out of the park this summer.
Yeah. And now what about, I wanted to ask you too about your other article, and in Dubas, I mean, we're still kind of like learning about him. And I hate to assume that just because he's analytics driven, he's not the type going after the alpha male type, but and I'll say, preface this with my child watches all the Penguins Stanley Cup videos on YouTube. So, I've heard many times Staggy saying that Mike Sullivan was the guy that walked in and was the alpha male the Penguins needed. And then Josh, you hammered that home in your article. And I just wonder, we don't know Dan Muse. Have you heard anything about him? And, I don't know. I just picture this like sabermetrics type baseball thing where there's going to be a bunch of analytics geeks sitting there and going like, oh, well, if we get the Corsi 4 in our advantage, we're going to be fine. Like, it just worries me a little bit. And please tell me that what you've heard from about Dan Muse is that he wants to go in and kick some ass.
Well, I haven't heard that. I've not heard anything that concerns me either. Like I said the other day, Artie likes him. Now, if Artie likes somebody, then that should make everyone feel a little better. If you get the Artie seal of approval, that's a good thing. And one thing I'll say about Dubas, a lot of people have said this seems like a Kyle hire. This guy seems like an analytics guy. I don't think Kyle is quite as big of an analytics guy as he is made out to be. I don't. I think he has a pretty healthy balance. I think he takes those things into consideration. But at the end of the day, Kyle's a scout more than anything. Kyle loves to go to old Canadian barns in the middle of winter and scout OHL games. That's what he does. So we'll find out. And by the way, for those who don't know, and how would you know, the press conference for Dan Muse is going to be Wednesday at 10 a.m. The Penguins were actually going to do it on Tuesday, I think. But a certain quarterback is speaking to the media on Tuesday on the South Side. So I think they're trying to they actually worked in coordination with the Steelers to kind of like do it on different days. So they weren't taking away attention from each other. So we'll find out more about him on Wednesday. I'm curious to hear what he has to say. But I'm telling you right now, he's going to have a tough job in front of him because numbers 58 and 65 and 71 will walk all over him if he lets them. And you have to coach those guys in a certain way, especially Letang and Malkin. I don't know Carlson as well, but I know those two. You have to challenge them. You have to be in their face. And I don't know if that's his personality or not, but we're going to find out real quick.
I'm not as worried about Gino because he's only got one more year left and he's going to do Gino things. And even though, I mean, your article was great because Terrian did challenge him when he was a kid and look what he became. He's better for it. Sully in his own way controlled Gino, but near the end, he got his 2 cups with Gino, and he knew he was going to. He wanted to be a welcome guest at his Hall of Fame speech, so he didn't really control too much either. And Gino's got one more year left, and Gino accepted the second power. Gino's accepted a lot of things over the last couple of years. I'm more concerned about just the absolute lack of defensive brain knowledge that Letang has. I kind of think Carlson's going to be gone. I kind of think someone's going to fall for him. The cap is going up. If you have someone that can play with him, then he's kind of worth it. He's kind of worth it.
You know what I was told, Joe? I was told by a couple of people that Carlson looked so good at the Four Nations, and he did, that got the attention of a lot of people around the league. It's like, man, this guy can still play. Maybe what's going on in Pittsburgh and their system, whatever, isn't right for him. But, there were people who saw that said, yeah, we might take a shot with him. So I would not be at all surprised if Erik Karlsson is dealt.
Yeah, because, let's face it. The Penguins are a 1.5 line team. If Karlsson played, I know this is asking big, but let's say Karlsson played on Florida with Kulikov, which is funny they were traded together. And he's up, and in the fourth line is the third line is the Rat and Lundell and Esoterian. You don't think he can get down the puck in a good spot?
Sure do.
And you don't think Kulikov can stay back and cover the net and know how to play it 2-on-1 if he gets pinched, and not have it be Letang with his head up his ass or somebody else, or you don't think Bobo might make a save when it mattered and not like jarring? Oh, it's like getting a sunburn from the light. It's like Carlson. It was I'm gonna forgive him to Norris, but he was completely exposed on this team because we could not use his skills to the best of our. We couldn't. Not using the words I want to say, but we're not making the most of his skills.
Yeah,
No.
he could be better suited than a team that has what did we have at one point, Joe? Like 4 forwards that were worthy of playing in the NHL. We had a message from on Twitter /X or whatever it's called. What is Dan Mu's system of choice? Does anyone know yet? What
Not
kind
really. I can tell you that my friend and colleague Jesse Marshall is going to be writing an article, I think, in the next few days, really breaking down systems that he has used at his coaching stints in the USHL and the college level. I know he's like outside the box. He does some wild shit. Like he'll put 5 forwards on the power play at the same time. He likes doing that. I think Jesse was telling me at some alignment, like he has defensemen take face-off sometimes. I swear to God, like weird stuff. Like he's outside the box. He's pretty innovative. That could be a good thing or a bad thing, I suppose. But I also think that any coach will tailor his system to the players that he has. And systems in the NHL, Carolina is the only system that looks different than anyone else. They all pretty much play the same system otherwise. I know people don't like to hear that. There's nuances, but there's not many differences. But this is a guy that is known for his ability to teach defense. I can tell you that. And boy, if I could think of a franchise that could use that, the Penguins are awfully high on that list.
You can only teach the willing, Josh. You can only teach the willing.
It's a very good point. I think there's a certain number 58 that I'm so afraid of saying of being critical of Letang just because like my kid and then my nephew are in the hockey world and so's his son in the Pittsburgh area. So like I'm gonna run into him in a lobby at a rink and be like, what the matter? You don't like the way I play hockey? Maybe. I don't know. Don't look at mine and Joe's text, that's for sure.
I'm waiting to bring up the podcast next season. I heard this bullshit you say about me.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's that day is coming if he's got a team coming.
If he's in the hospital for another extended period of time, he can listen to my 15 years of Letang on podcasts. It looks like a lie detector, like up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down. My love of him in 2009, it all came from that contract. My whole disagreement with him all came from that contract because I'm like, if you make that much money, you have to play better on the power play. You have to hit the net, and you have to play defense a little bit. If you're making that amount of money, you have to play some better defense. I'm not saying you're not tough in front of the net. I'm not saying that you don't punch outside your weight class. You have to be more defensively responsible.
And at age 38, he's not going to get any better now. He's just not. Let's be realistic here. Dan Muse has to stand school, I'm telling you.
Yeah. Well, as long as Dan Muse doesn't run the Swedish torpedo, which is a real system. Be careful how you Google that, but it is a hockey system.
Oh.
I know that because we had a coach that contemplated it once. He emailed the whole team, and the subject line said Swedish torpedo. And we were like, "What?" Like, coach got hacked. Like everybody, watch out! Don't click this email.
Take that a lot of different ways.
Yes.
Now, Josh, I'm not trying to, and I'm giving Dan, I'm the logo first. I hope he wins. I hope he wins Coach of the Year. But now, is there a chance that maybe they gave somebody else and they turned the job down?
I haven't heard that. It's possible, sure. They certainly took their time before they, ultimately announced who the coach was. In fact, it was announced, I think, 3 days past the deadline that Kyle had set. I don't know. I really don't. Okay, there were certainly a lot of names out there. I don't think it was necessarily an easy decision. I did talk with Kyle about this guy for a few minutes just off the record on Friday in Buffalo. Kyle granted an interview about free agency and such. He didn't really want to talk about the coach because he didn't want to blow up the press conference that's taking place on Wednesday when they will both be. In fact, Kyle and the new head coach, Dan Muse, will be speaking at that press conference. But I could tell that he certainly seemed happy with him. And those I've spoken with around the hockey world about him, he's a really highly regarded guy. I think he's a really good coach. I think he's, by all accounts, a good human being, a good teacher, a hardworking guy. My only concern is the personality. And I don't know. Maybe he's a hard ass. He might be. I mean, I've seen some interviews with players who, played for him that said he kills you in practice. He really runs hard practices. He doesn't make it easy. That's actually encouraging to hear. I think they need that. And I think the world of Sully, I do. But I'll tell you what, the last couple of years, he took it easy on them quite a bit. And I don't think it helped them. And Sullivan, he told me a couple of times during the season, like he would give the Penguins a day off, like unexpectedly. Penguins have canceled practice tomorrow. If you go back and look, every time he did that, they would get killed the next game. And he actually said to me, he said, they burn me every time I give them a day off. Like, you got to be hard on this team. So it's word of advice to Dan Muse.
I agree with you. I just bring it up only because we've been sitting here for half an hour saying what a tough job it is. And I didn't know if somebody was just like, you know what?
It is.
I might wait till there's a better situation for me. But that's kind of my scary feeling about everything is maybe he runs a tough practice. Yeah, he ran a tough practice when kids who want to play for America who are 17. Right. This is running a tough practice with guys who are like, hey, what are you doing?
It's a little different when they have $100 million.
Guys that have lunch plans,
That's right. It's true.
I gotta go pick up my kid before the game. Like, what are we doing here?
Yeah. Yeah, it does get a little hard to, I think, make a 38-year-old skate. They're like, really, dude, you're doing this? We'll see. I'm really interested to see what Dan Muse looks like and what he sounds like at the press conference. Not his voice. I want to hear, the tone, what kind of direction he has. It's going to be very interesting. And we will all be waiting on bated. It's not breath because we're not breathing your article, but I think we kind of do live and breathe your articles, Josh. So we'll be waiting.
I want to make one point before we get to the great Bill in the office. Is there a chance Sid may be there
at the press conference?
Yes.
I guess there's a chance. I don't know.
He's not on social media. We never see him like Gino. We see him at the Heat game, or we see him or we see him body surfing. You never see like here's Sid in Spain. So I don't know. I mean, that would make me feel a hell of a lot better if somebody. If one of the players is there.
Yeah, no, I see that. I see what you mean. Historically, he doesn't attend stuff like that usually. I'm sure Dan Muse would appreciate it if I had to guess. Sid might not. I haven't talked with Sid since saw him in Sweden a couple weeks ago. He might not even be in town right now either. He goes to Europe a lot in the off season. He may have stayed there for a while after he was in Sweden, if I had to guess. I don't know if he's back in North America yet or not. But he is at the facility an awful lot, and I am curious to know if Dan Muse and Sid have had a conversation, if they talked before he took the job, before he was offered the job. Sid made it very clear to me. He said, Kyle's the guy picking the coach, not me. I just want to win. But I'm sure Kyle Dubas still took Sidney Crosby into consideration when he made this decision. So I'm curious to see how this relationship unfolds between those two.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I'm sorry. And then we have even more. Hey, Josh, in your article, you listed the 5 Penguin unrestricted free agents. And I don't have that in front of me. But I thought the only one that looked interesting was Tomasino.
The rest of free agents, I think.
Restricted, yes, excuse me. The rest could all leave, as far as I'm concerned.
I mean, I thought Connor Timmins was okay. I thought Connor DeWeer was okay. I mean, there's nothing wrong with bringing those guys back if they're going to work cheap. But that's also, you're not going to freak out if, one of those guys walks.
I love the rusty nail Connor doers. But I just was like, yeah, we're trying to turn things over.
Right. Yeah, you're not going to make or break things with those guys anyway. So if you get them cheap, fine. I was kind of led to believe by Dubas that he's going to keep some of those guys, but he's not going to keep all of them. That was certainly my sense.
Yeah, I think that's a good. Like you said, Joe, we need a little turnover here. Let's get some new blood.
But Dubas played great for us. But I don't see his. I mean, he's exactly what we need. A guy with grit and some hands. So maybe I should have said I really want him back. But I just think
he's a bottom six guy who like understands what to do as a bottom six guy.
Right? Yeah. But I just see Tom Messina's upside and maybe a different coach give him a little more little more playing time.
Well, he's got talent. Yeah, he's somebody you'd take a chance on if he wants to work cheap for sure.
Yeah. Well, I'll work cheap for the Penguins. I'll go out there on the fourth line. I'll go right into the goaltender. You put me and Joe on the wing. Get Artie out there. I think the three of us would certainly bloody some people up. We're going to talk about coming up. We're going to talk about the Stanley Cup Finals. I mean, it has been absolutely incredible. As far as non-Penguin Stanley Cup Finals go, it's been some of the most enthralling that I've been able to remember in recent history, and we'll talk about some other ones that were interesting over the years. But before we get into the Stanley Cup Final, Josh, you have some words from Mr. Bill Neofus, don't you?
The great Bill Neofus, the man who runs Neofus Insurance. I spoke with our great sponsor today, in fact, and he was contemplating going to PNC Park. I was thinking to myself, Joe Bartnick would say, "Save your money, Bill. Come on, don't make such a decision."
I know Bill can afford to go because our friends Randy and Clinton got in for $11 on StubHub.
And Speeds was pitching. Wow, that's really disturbing. But Neofus Insurance, our great sponsor. You hear us talk about them every week, and we will continue to do so. They're the best. Give Bill a call or one of his great coworkers. 412-364-3388 is their number. I'll say it one more time. 412-364-3388. If you need insurance of any kind, doesn't matter what it is, they will take care of you. They will do it with a smile and a very genuine one at that. Just quality human beings. They've been in business since 1960. It's about 40, 50, 60, 65 years, if my math is correct. So they are a Pittsburgh institution. Give Bill a call. He'll take care of you.
Thank you, Bill.
Thank you, Bill. Now, the Stanley Cup Finals, the first two games, I can't recall two games. That's what actually I was thinking post-game. I can't recall two games like this in the Stanley Cup Finals ever to start. And then they said, this is the first time it's happened that there have been two overtime games in the Stanley Cup Final. And we're not just talking overtime games. We're talking tied in the last 17 seconds, and it's been unbelievable drama, guys. And what is your takeaway from the first two games, just outside of like who's going to win or whatever, like the theater and the drama behind everything?
Yeah, Corey, it's not just that we've had two overtime games. It's been the quality of the games, the entertainment level of these games. This is special stuff, Joe. I mean, these are, to me, I think we can say now clearly the two best teams in the league, both playing at an incredibly high level, incredibly entertaining. Like, I can't get enough of this series. I was just enthralled watching game two, sitting here on my couch watching game two. I didn't want it to end. I mean, that was just phenomenal hockey.
Yeah, we were talking about this, me and my buddy Court in Nashville for game one. I don't have a dog in the fight, neither did he, and we were both nervous watching the game.
Yes. Yes.
Like, how's that even happen? Game two was just a masterpiece from so many players. I mean, how about Carter Verhaeghe?
Oh.
I always talk about him, but the puck finds him even more than it finds Jake Ensel. The puck just finds him everywhere. He's greasy. Anytime you're in the list with Joe Sakic, right? Everyone on that overtime list is going to the Hall of Fame.
Oh yeah. Yeah. You're right about him, and I thought that this is kind of stating the obvious, but the game Brad Marchand played the other night, and really the way he's played this whole postseason, like. Sam Bennett might have something to say, but I mean, he's not that far off from being the Conn Smythe guy right now for Florida. That's how good Marchand has been, and you just knew he was going to score when he was on that breakaway at double overtime. He's just one of those guys. He's not afraid. He's going to find a way. He's such of a competitor. I actually tweeted during the game. Some people agreed with me. Some people didn't. I tweeted, "You might not like him, but that guy's a first ballot Hall of Famer." I'm sorry. He's going to score 500 goals, that good defensively, and that good in the clutch like he has always been. What an unbelievable pickup for Billy Zito and the Panthers to get before the deadline. Incredible to me that they got him.
Oh, I think there's no doubt he's a Hall of Famer, and it makes me sick when all the compilers make me sick. The guys that sneak in, or the guys that don't do it when it matters. And the Rat always is clutch when it matters. And I'll tell you, we always glorify third lines in Pittsburgh and everywhere. All the third line, Lundell, the Rat, and Esoterian. That is one of the all-time greatest third line. I mean, Lindell would be a number one center on half the teams in the league.
He's a great player. Oh, he really is. He's 23 years old, by the way. Just a kid. No, I love that line. I know it's technically their third line. I don't even view it as their third line. And it's not their third most effective line. And Florida's in a weird place right now. I think it's becoming really clear that Tkachuk is not healthy. I mean, he's played with a pretty serious injury. He's not himself.
I don't think Reinhardt's feeling good either.
He's not been good. I don't know if he's hurt or just not playing well. He doesn't look himself. You're right. Even Barkov has been okay the first two games, not great. So they're not really getting the contributions from their biggest names. And yet, they're still scoring plenty of goals. That's for sure. I'm interested in this, Joe, because I feel like for the most part that Edmonton's been the better team in these two games, the more dominant team. I feel like they have the puck a lot more. I feel like their speed has really given Florida fits. And yet, you can flip that around and say, you're Florida, you still got the split on the road. You've got home ice now. And it's just impossible to kill that team. They just won't die. And even though he gave up 4 goals the other night, I thought Bobrovsky was sensational in that game, Joe.
I thought Bobrovsky had about 5 or 6 10-bell saves.
Yes.
2 of them.
How about that one on Draisaitl?
Oh. One on Draisaitl, 2 on Bouchard in a row, like almost in the same sequence.
Yep.
That was incredible. And it's really funny because I know that they like Bobrovsky, but they seem to just give all the television crew is painting Skinner up like he's Patrick Waugh, and Skinner has definitely come through in the second periods. Florida has looked great, and that's usually when you can really dominate a bad team because it's the long change and defensive responsibilities. So Skinner has kept them in the game twice in the second period, but in the first and thirds, it's been all Florida. But just getting back, but Bobrovsky, I think, is really. I think Skinner's played well, but I think Bobrovsky's kind of outplayed him in a way.
I mean, he's just the quality of the saves he's had to make. That great Florida defensive juggernaut has not really held up that well against Edmonton. McDavid and Draisaitl, they're doing their thing. I mean, they really are. They are so hard to stop. I'm fascinated by the series in so many different ways. I think it's the best first 2 games we've ever seen of a Stanley Cup final. I don't recall anything like this. And these 2 games have been an event. I mean, the quality of hockey is that great. So what happens? Because Edmonton has a way of wearing teams down with its skating. You just get sick of chasing them and you run out of gas. Florida has a way of wearing teams down in a completely different way. They just come at you in waves. They beat you up. They grind you down throughout a series. So who's going to win that war? I don't have the answer. I don't know that anybody does. I just know that I can't wait for 8 o'clock tomorrow night to roll around so we can watch it again because this just feels like a special 7-game series that we're watching.
Well, I will say this, that I think that Gustav Forsling has played tremendous.
Oh, how about the play he made in overtime when he was on his belly? And I forget, it was it McDavid or Draisaitl, I think maybe. Or Kane, that's right. I mean, that might have been the game right there if he doesn't.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. He's phenomenal. Some of the other guys have been out of place. So Kudlikov's played pretty good, but I think Seth Jones he's played pretty good, but he's been out of place a few times.
I'll say another one. I think Ekblad's banged up too. I don't think he's 100%. That's a concern for Florida. They definitely have some people that are starting to get beaten up a little bit. But one thing that helps, you got the 2 days off before game 3, and then there's another 2 days off before game 4 on Thursday. So that actually might help the Panthers a little bit.
I always say that when you win a game in overtime, if it's over one period, if it's second and third, it feels like you won 2 games. And if you lose, it feels like you lost 2 games. That is a big loss for Edmonton. But I think Game 4, as it always is going to be very pivotal because then there's only 1 day rest before Game 5 back in Edmonton.
That's a good point. Now you're right, Joe. I remember the Peter Nedved 4 overtime game. You knew the Penguins weren't going to lose again in that series, and the Keith Primeau 5 overtime game against the Penguins. You knew the Flyers weren't going to lose again after winning that game. The momentum that those games have, that it's a little different. Although in this series, since they both went to overtime, now there's a big break before Game 3. I don't know if there is any momentum really going into Game 3. I just think it's a best-of-5 series now, and now it's Florida that has the home ice.
Yeah, it was like all Florida had to do was win one of those 2. And I said if they lose Game 1, no one is more prepared and veteran-laden to not be worried about losing a Game 1. But I also said, I don't know if it was on this show or I think it's just to people I know, we're going to know, it was so close. I said, we're going to know everything after the first 10 minutes of Game 1. Because if the Oilers look like the JV, like Carolina did, like Toronto did with everybody except Nyes.
Like Tampa did.
Then, and just physically, just kids, then it's over. But if they look up to the challenge, which they have, then I think Jesus and Leon are going to pull a miracle out.
They might. I will say this: Edmonton does not look intimidated at all.
No,
and Florida likes to intimidate you. And Carolina looked intimidated to me, like when they started throwing cheap shots and running around. Like you could tell, Florida was in their heads already. I don't think they're in Edmonton's head. I really don't. I think Florida just isn't going to win any psychological games with them. They just have to flat out beat them, and maybe they will. But boy, they got their hands full because Edmonton is, especially in that building, man. It's just it felt like in Game 2, it felt like Edmonton was going to win that game in overtime, didn't it? And when Florida finally won, I was like, man, that's pretty impressive because I didn't think Florida was going to win that game.
It did. Well, there's a big difference with in Edmonton and Florida. The big difference is Evander Kane, because everyone else that has played, Kachuk and Bennett and Ekblad, they can fight light heavyweights.
Mm-hmm.
Other than Gadovich, they don't fight heavyweights.
Right.
Gadovich big, and he's a 4th liner on Florida. He's the only guy that's going to be able to go toe-to-toe with Kane. And that's a very nice deterrent to have. Oh. And they do not look scared of, because Carolina, like an idiot, like Dan Bousman used to do sometimes. Try, well, we're as tough as Boston. Well, no, you're not, Dan. Just score more goals. Like, that's one of the dumbest things you can do in hockey is try to coach your team to be tough when they're not going to out-tough a team.
Reminds me, a few years ago, the Penguins were playing against Evander Kane. I forget which team he was with at that time. It was right before COVID, I think. And he apparently, I was told this by somebody who was in that direction. He looked at the entire Penguins bench and he says, who the fuck's going to do anything about it on this team? And the Penguins just all looked at him and kind of put their heads down. What were they going to do? I remember when Evander Kane, I'm old enough to remember when 19-year-old Evander Kane dropped back Cook with one punch when he was in the Thrasher. And I'll tell you what, Kane, I know a lot of people don't like him. He's honestly not one of my favorite people in the league, but he's one hell of a hockey player. And when he's playing at this level, they're a different team. McDavid and Draisaitl, you know what they bring. But when you get that secondary scoring from guys like Kane, it just makes them such of a handful. And for Florida, it puts pressure on. Like, you kind of know you got to score like 4 goals to beat Edmonton. You're not going to just shut them down in 1 or 2 goals. They're just good.
And that second line with the friendly ghost, Kasperi Kapanen, has played incredible.
Oh,
physical. So now Leon Kane and a motivated Kapanen is a good second line.
Kapanen's been great. I give him so much credit. He's another one. He's been through the ringer. He always has had the talent. He's never put it together. Always just he's just kind of a different bird, that guy. That's the best way I could describe him. But he looks really motivated and locked in. He looks like a threat every time he's on the ice, doesn't he?
He almost won the game in overtime, and he's had maybe 5 big hits in these playoffs. That's more than this whole last 5 years of his career.
I know.
Where was this guy in Pittsburgh? Jeez.
Or Toronto or St. Louis or wherever else he played.
And wherever any other place he's been. It's never piled up for him. And
No.
Josh, you kind of mentioned it, and I felt this way, like when you're watching that, even though Bob made that fantastic save on Draisaitl with about a minute to go, when McDavid came off the wall and did the fake, is he going to shoot, is he going to pass, what are you going to do? Bob makes that great save, and even then I'm like, it just felt like Edmonton was going to win. It felt like they were going to tie the game, and then they tie it, and you're like, man, this feels like they're going to win, and man, they're going to be up 2-0, and it feels like Edmonton's going to win the Stanley Cup, and they're going to finally do it. And then boom, they don't. And it's like nothing I've seen with the Florida Panthers, because like we've talked about many times this postseason, the third time through was definitely the hardest. Yeah. And I can't believe that this team is that difficult to kill. Like there's just
no, and any other team in that situation, Corey, like you're in Edmonton, I thought Florida sat back way too much in the third period. Like they were hanging on for dear life. And then you give up the game tying goal with 20 seconds left or whatever it was. I think any other team in the league in that situation gives up a goal to Edmonton in the first 5 minutes in overtime, and that's it. That's what it felt like was going to happen. But Florida, they just have a way about them. We talk about their physical toughness a lot, and boy, they have it. But to me, it's their mental toughness that really sets them apart. They don't get rattled by anything, and they just have a composure about them. And I think you give Paul Maurice credit for that, but I also just think it's their best players, quite honestly.
Markov doesn't get rattled.
No, hell no. He really doesn't. And Tkachuk doesn't get rattled, and Marchand's been through the wars. Like these guys, they've seen it all. And if you go back to last year, I mean, how many teams would have been rattled? You're up 3-0 in the final, then you lose 3 straight, and McDavid's steamrolling you. How many teams would have had the guts to get their shit together and win Game 7? Not many, but those guys did.
Well, 2 years ago, when they went to the finals and lost, they had so many overtime games. Like that team as a whole has just been battle tested through everything.
That's right.
Well, they were Marchand had a breakaway, I think, in Game 5 against them. Boston was up 3-1, and he didn't score on the breakaway. They go to overtime, and then they come back from 3-1 in the Game 7 against Boston, weren't they down? They tied it with like 50 seconds left.
I think so. That sounds right.
Yeah, they're just a resilient bunch.
Oh yeah, no, they really are. So I don't know. I've had a lot of people ask me who's going to win the series. Like I have no freaking idea. I truly don't. I picked Florida in 7. I kind of think Edmonton was the better team in the first 2 games slightly. Like I thought they carried the play a little more than I was expecting that they would. But Florida knows how to adjust in a series. They're still going to have to beat Florida 3 more times. I don't know. I think it's a great thing for hockey, though, guys. I really do. If there's any like casual fans out there who don't really care about hockey, if they're tuning into these games, the NHL is making some fans. I'm telling you, because just the theatrical nature of these games, the entertainment level, the speed that these games are being played at. Man, this is a different kind of series.
Oh yeah, I was at my godson's graduation party, and that's what anyone's talking about is the finals. And I'm in Philly, and I guess the Phillies are really good, and the Eagles just won the Super Bowl, and the Flyers are the Flyers. They haven't done anything, and and everyone's just talking about the hockey.
It's great. No, I mean and I know it's a small market Canadian team and a Southern market, so a lot of people think that's bad for the league. I don't think this is bad for the league at all. This series,
no,
I really don't.
You have a dynasty versus 2 of the greatest players ever to play the game.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So how can that be a bad thing?
This, you're in the wrong business. If the marketing team can't sell this.
Right. And we've barely talked about McDavid, by the way, who has been absolutely spectacular in these, especially in Game 2. The pass he made, everything that he did on the first period goal, the feed to Draisaitl, that was off the charts. I mean, no one else in the world can do what he did there. And Draisaitl's playing out of his mind too. So it really does not get much better than what we're watching right now.
if I'm Evan Bouchard, I would just go on LTIR every year at the beginning of the year and just show up at the playoffs. Because last year at this time, I'm like, this guy's going to be up for Norris next year. This guy's one of the three. He's like, he's not Cal McCarr, but he's maybe the second best defenseman. Then he disappears the whole regular season. What happened to him? Now he's back to playing incredible hockey. He's even playing defense. I will say this though. Imagine what Paul Coffey or Gonchar or Lidstrom would have, many points they'd have. Because whenever Jesus swings around and backs everybody up, he's not even from the ladies' tees. He's playing miniature golf. He's so close.
No, he is. I mean, and you knew after game one or during game one, you knew when they got the power play in overtime, it was over.
Yeah.
You cannot give that team power plays. That's one thing. We've had a lot of penalties called in these first two games. That's not to Florida's advantage. I really think it's better for Florida to play 5-on-5 and keep that power play off the ice.
The announcers even said that to let just don't even try to intimidate, because you don't want to go 4-on-4.
No, God, that's almost as bad. Yeah,
right. I mean, and that's really, as people who know me know, I call that flyer BS hockey, because they knew they could never beat the Penguins 5-on-5. So they'll take 3 dumb penalties. Hopefully they can kill them off, and then they know they'll get their power play because of just the way the way the league calls the games. You're absolutely right though about that hook on Jesus though. This is the playoffs. That final hook in the third. That's a terrible call.
I thought so too. So I don't know. I am eagerly anticipating Game 3. If I had to guess, I bet you they split these 2 games in Florida. It really wouldn't shock me, and that's okay. Let's get at least 6 games out of this. I think if you're a hockey fan, you should really want that. But I truly have no idea who is going to win this series. Absolutely none.
I don't either, and I want as many games as possible, and I do think they'll split. And then if it's Game 7 in Canada, I wanted to be right. I picked Florida, but I do not want that to happen to Jesus. Like I would feel horrible for him. Like just witness losing Florida, Jesus. The other thing though that Staggy brought up to me was, and I could have thought about myself, but I didn't. So I'm going to give Paul props. We're tied right now as the 2 non-original 6 teams with the most cups. So I kind of hate to lose that, actually.
That's true. The Oilers go for 5, yeah.
Yeah, so Jesus, go to Toronto.
Or Pittsburgh, even better. Well, you mentioned the marketing department of the NHL. If there's any marketing department that can screw this up, it would be the NHL marketing department. Yeah. Not the people that work, and do the actual work and the graphics and the spots. It's the higher ups that sit there and go, you know what? Let's not really put a light on Sidney Crosby. Let's let the Flyers be Darian Hatcher knock his teeth out and let them, piss him off and ruin him.
Let's make Sidney Crosby's first ever game in New Jersey.
Yeah, God, just
that's
so many
off 20 years later. Come on.
Speaking of Hatcher, though, I got to say this: that I was proven right by some of my favorite people, and we've argued for years. And I said, you know what the biggest problem the Flyers was they put their faith in Claude Giroux. And he's just not a winner. He's not a leader. He gets cheap points. He's a power play penalty kill expert. He's not a guy that's going to lead your franchise. And I had 6 to 10 Flyer fans here all agree with me.
Oh, doesn't it feel good to be vindicated in that moment?
Yes.
You're a man of the people, Joe.
Hey,
Joe likes Philadelphia. Joe always does well for himself.
I love Philadelphia. I love everything about Philadelphia except the creamsicles. And I'll tell you what, Dubas, if you want to kill me, you'll sign Giroux as a free agent. That would be the final. That would be the final. That would be the. I would literally be. I would be under 24-hour surveillance. When you get sent to a mental institution.
I clearly never can give Joe Kyle Dubas' phone number. I think that would be a bad idea.
No. I respect. I had Ric Flair's number, and I never. Having Ric Flair's number is having the bat phone.
That's true.
You never dialed it.
Never doubt.
Have you ever like had somebody had a famous phone number and then just texted them one day because you couldn't help it anyway? Like I did it one time. I did it. I'd interviewed him before, but I never covered Yager, but I had his number. A couple of years ago, I just randomly introduced myself and texted him. I'm like, hey, why don't you just come back? You got to get your number retired. Everybody misses you, okay? He writes back, who this? I'm like, oh, shit. So I told him who I was, and we spoke about it a year later. He thought it was funny. Maybe my text helped him. I don't think so. But
Did I tell you guys about my Jeremy Piven story? I think I did.
Yes. I hate Jeremy Piven as much as the Pirates owners. They're both frauds. You can label this segment frauds. The Pirates, Giroux, and Jeremy Piven.
Well, so I had a couple of topics.
Features because my nephews love they love the Pirates. So I watch McCutcheon. He's a good guy. McCutcheon got a game of it today.
He is.
So, yeah. We like Kutch.
Yeah, we like Kutch. He's become one of our own. You know, he's like a Pittsburgher now at this point.
He's good. He does a lot for. He's a good guy.
Yes.
Yeah. The we ran a little bit long. I had some topics to bring up, but one thing I wanted to ask you mentioned Edmonton. If it goes to Game 7 in Canada, Joe, and you're like, I don't want that for Jesus. And it made this question that's been kind of like on my list here to bring up to Josh. Have you ever asked Sid about what it was like having to sit out the third period of Game 7 against Detroit? Because I feel like that had to have been the most painful thing for someone as competitive as him to want to be out there and to not. I'm curious. Did you ever ask him about it?
Oh, yeah. I've talked with him about it. And I think that's when you really appreciate his maturity level. And that's when you realize even at 21, he was far more mature than any of us will ever be. So I said to him, that had to be torture for you. You took one shift in the last 30 minutes of Game 7. It's a 1-goal game at the end. And he said, I couldn't move. He said, I knew I wasn't going to help the team, so I was pissed. But he said, I was kind of relaxed, too, because it was an easy decision for me. I wasn't going to hurt the team by going out there. So he's almost kind of zen when he talks about it. And maybe he has to do that to him. So I'm sure at the time it was horrible. But he will just be very matter of fact about that topic. And I couldn't play. I was really hurt. I think he was probably going to have to miss a little bit of time if that had happened during the season. Wasn't anything major, but still the knee was not right. But he claims that he didn't get rattled by it at the time, that I think he kind of just had faith that they were going to win that game. And Jordan Stahl and Geno Malkin played the games of their lives, and they found a way.
Yeah. It's just always, I wonder, thinking about that with McDavid and everything. Like as a kid, we forget about that all the time, and I look back at the 2016 Stanley Cup, and I remember him being out there blocking the shot to set up Hornquist for the empty netter to seal it. And I'm like, okay, he got his moment, because it bothered me a little bit. I don't know if it bothered you guys, but it bothered me a little bit that he wasn't the one on the ice, icing it in Game 7. I mean, it was Fleury's moment, and that's what it ended up being. But I remember Stahl taking that face off, thinking to myself, boy, I'd love this to be Sid right now. Like, I'd love him to be the one to close it out. So,
yeah, and Stahlsy lost that one clean, which made things a little interesting at the end.
Yep, I remember. I think I said in my family room, I was like, win this face off to the corner and you win the Stanley Cup. And he did the complete opposite of win the face off to the corner.
Right back to Rafalski at the point. Yeah, that wasn't good.
No, but Joe, you've told the story before about when you were watching it or listening. You were listening, right?
Yeah, I was backstage at the Speckle Theater in San Diego. I watched the first two periods and had to listen to the period 3 before the show. And we pushed the show as long as we could because Lisa Lampenelli was like, you can't go out there without knowing if the Penguins won or not. and the connection was so bad that it kept spinning because it was before Wi-Fi was everywhere, that my wife was doing play-by-play at the time. And she goes, okay, there's a face-off. Detroit got the puck. They shot it. And it's just silence. And then she
Oh
goes,
God,
they won. The Penguins won.
That had to have been the longest 2 seconds of your life.
oh yeah.
Then they would have had to go out instead of doing a half hour. I go, Lisa, I can only do 18 because I got to get ready for overtime. I'll be across the street at the bar. Can't do a half hour. Could be on stage.
Oh man, I wish there was video of Joe coming on stage right after the Pens with the Stanley
Joe's
Cup.
never been in a better mood than he was in that moment on stage.
It was literally like they won, and they're like, okay, and then literally like they started playing the theme music for me to go out, and I literally walked out of San Diego, and I literally go, I go, my team just won the Stanley Cup. I know you people don't give an F. Like it was like.
Does your buddy Frazier still have the call? Was it 09 that you called him after a couple of pops after winning the cup?
That was 16. I went live on KLOS. I used to do a hit every Sunday, and I went live and I was annihilated after the one we won on Sunday. And I dropped like 3 F-bombs and it was just like hilarious. It was hilarious.
We need some recordings of these. Yeah, I would like to hear this.
Yeah,
this could be one of those like little things we release on YouTube to our fans. So
yes.
The funny thing is like KLOS, they still don't even podcast. Like how like DVE and everything's a podcast.
Yeah.
KLOS still doesn't do any podcasting. So
it's all terrestrial.
It's all lost in the air.
It's gone to time.
It's like the Chili Billy and Studio Wrestling tapes from. Now I show my age. But there's no Studio Wrestling Bruno Sammartino, channel 11, no Chili Billy Theater. When I was a little kid, me and my cousins I'd fall asleep in 3 seconds. We'd try to stay up and watch Chili Billy would do like Dracula. Bill Cardille, he lived until like this year.
Legendary Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Chili Billy. But they all rode over those, with like, when the tapes were gone.
Yeah, it's like the equivalent of your wife taping over the Super Bowl, or you taping over your wedding with the Super Bowl. But yeah, well, I mean, guys, it's been a fantastic series so far. We're gonna have before next week 3 more games. I don't think the series will be wrapped up by then. So we'll see. But
is there a chance we might be able to do a live viewing party?
Yeah, maybe we might have to discuss this.
Yeah. Let's find a day that works and let's watch the game.
Let's go meet our fans.
Yeah,
I'm all for it. I'm down. The fans have got to show up, and then we can get a bar to sponsor us. That way we can just make it easy for everyone.
Or the businessman's already thinking. I like it.
Yeah. There's an Oakmont situation going on this week, so there's some bars down there that'll be a little busy.
We're not going anywhere near there.
Well, for those of you that like golf, enjoy the U.S. Open this week, and for Joe, steer clear of Oakmont.
I like people going and having a great time. I'm pro bringing all the business to Pittsburgh. That's fantastic, but we shouldn't drive into the hurricane to watch a game.
Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah,
we'll figure it out. Stay tuned. We'll try to put something together for sure.
Did we miss any fans? There's some good questions. I thought I tried to address the ones I could. Someone was asking for JJ Peterka. He's okay. He's no Matthew Nyes, but I don't want to overpay for JJ Peterka.
I would agree
because I want guys that are used to winning. It's like
good point.
Bring on the winners. Yeah, no, there's I try to put. I mean, there was who was it? God, my brain's. You can tell it's 11:20 at night. But who was it? The Ranger guy you guys were talking about? I kept throwing them up there because like 5 people in a row.
Miller.
Yeah. All everybody was asking. Then Peterka. But if you follow us on Twitter or wherever, tag us all and tell us and tag the establishment that you want us to go to.
Yeah.
That would maybe give them a little tap on the shoulder that hey, we should do something here. But I'm all for it. We want to get out with the people more. We want to hear more Josh Yohe stories that can't maybe be on the air
when the cameras aren't on. Like I tell some really inappropriate stories about athletes and such. So I have no filter at all. So I'm happy to do that. I'm a big mouth.
As evidenced by the story that you told Mark Cabali, who then retold the story on this podcast. And we love that about you, Josh. You're just wide open. You're an open book.
Well, you only live once. When you have good stories, why keep them to yourself?
Hey, and if you're Joe, you can turn it into a living. So that's
that's right. That's right.
Yeah, that's all I do. I got tons of stories, but I got to run, fellas.
But yeah. Hey, well, this was great, everybody. Enjoy the games, and we will talk to you next week.